Beer is a 13,000-year-old obsession that might actually be the reason you are sitting in a house today instead of wandering in a forest. While most think we farmed grain to make bread, a growing body of evidence suggests we settled down for the brew. That pint next to your pizza or your football game isn't just a drink. It's a social engine that built the first cities. From the 10,000-year-old rice beers of China to the sacred maize chicha of South America, every glass is a liquid archive of human survival. Today, we're tracing this 10,000-year evolution, from ritualistic clay pots to the chrome taps of your local bar, exploring how this bubbly brew quietly engineered the modern world. Because every time you raise a glass, you're basically holding 10 millennia of history with a little foam on top.
Stay curious about the simple things. I'm Edward, and this is QC Project Simple Things.
For most of human history, a glass of clear water was a death sentence. This is the irony of our survival. We didn't thrive because of nature's purity, but because of a glorious biological mistake. 10,000 years ago, someone left a bowl of porridge in the rain, wild yeast staged a coup, and liquid bread was born. It was a simple collision of starch and microorganisms, but it created a miracle of safety. The fermentation didn't just add a buzz, it acted as a chemical shield, killing the pathogens that made raw water lethal. There is a biological concept called hormesis, where the tiny amounts of ethanol in ancient brews actually trained the human immune system to survive a hostile world. We didn't just repeat this mistake for the happiness it poured, we repeated it because it was the only energy source we could actually trust. It was the most productive disaster in history, a bowl of ruined grain that accidentally paved the way for the modern world. What if the foundation of our modern world was built on a hangover? Conventional history claims we settled down 13,000 years ago for the security of bread, but the cells of our past tell a different story. We settled for the brew. Some archaeologists now argue that agriculture wasn't a pursuit of food, but a collective effort to keep the fermentation flowing. Think of it as a genetic contract with barley. To ensure a steady supply of beer, we had to stop wandering. We dug irrigation canals, invented taxation, and built granaries, not because we wanted to be civilized, but because we wanted to protect the grain. Even in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the transition from wild beast to human only happens after the character Enkidu drains 7 jugs of beer. It wasn't the bread that refined him, it was the drink. This highlights a deeper evolutionary truth. Beer acted as our first social technology, a lubricant that allowed strangers to lower their guard and build the first cities. We didn't just rise for the grain, we stood up for the beer, and civilization was simply the organized chaos that followed. If we look back at ancient Egypt, humanity wasn't saved by a miracle of mercy, but by a divine hangover. The goddess Hathor, in a fit of rage that threatened to wipe us out, was only stopped when the gods tricked her with a vat of beer dyed red to mimic blood. She drank until she collapsed, and in that drunken slumber, the world survived. This is the irony of our origins. The first hangover was literally our salvation. But beer was more than just a myth. It was the liquid currency of the Nile. The god Osiris supposedly taught us to brew, turning beer into a sacred necessity that fueled the building of the pyramids. In Sumer, priests and peasants shared the same straw in temple rituals, proving that the holy and the tipsy have always coexisted. This points to a fascinating economic truth. In the ancient world, beer was a standard of value, a stable, storable calorie that acted as the gold of the working class. To drink was to honor the gods, to secure your wages, and to turn the back-breaking labor of the harvest into a festival worth attending. Long before the world cared about a fair vote, it cared about a perfect pint. In the ancient sands of Mesopotamia, the Code of Hammurabi wasn't just a legal text, it was the first quality control manual for humanity. While democracy was still a distant dream, bar rules were already written in stone. If a tavern owner watered down the beer or overcharged a patron, the penalty wasn't a fine, it was death by drowning. This proves a brutal historical truth. The stability of an empire rested on the integrity of its brew. Think of it as the original gold standard, only it was liquid. The labourers raising the Great Pyramids didn't just work for glory, they worked for 2 litres of beer a day. This was the first employee benefits package, a storable calorie that provided hydration, nutrition, and the sheer motivation to move mountains. But the most startling discovery lies in ancient Nubia, where beer became a biological shield. Chemists have found traces of tetracycline in their bones, proving that 1,500 years before modern medicine, the cure for infection was hiding inside their happy hour. Beer didn't just pay the builders, it secretly healed the sick. It was a currency that offered more than just value. It offered survival. In medieval Europe, the laboratory wasn't a university. It was a monastery. While the world prayed, the monks were busy perfecting a holy science. But the biggest revolution in your glass didn't come from a prayer. It came from a flower and a forgotten hero. Before the 16th century, beer was a wild herbal mess flavoured with a mixture called gruit, which often caused more hallucinations than hangovers. The church pushed for hops not just for flavour, but as a moral preservative to replace those unpredictable herbs. In 1516, Bavaria codified this with the Reinheitsgebot, the legendary purity law. It mandated only 3 ingredients: water, barley, and hops. Notice someone missing. Yeast wasn't even on the list. For centuries, the very engine of fermentation was a quiet hero, a biological ghost that the monks simply attributed to divine intervention. By mastering the balance of bitterness and preservation, these cloistered brewers transformed beer from a local porridge into a global art form, proving that sometimes the road to heaven is paved with a very good batch of ale. Before 1842, the world of beer was dark, murky, and unpredictable. Then, a Czech town called Plzeň birthed a revolution, the Pilsner. It was the Beyoncé of beers, pale, golden, and glamorous. But its success wasn't just about the brew, it was about the rise of affordable glassware. For the first time, people didn't just want to taste their beer, they wanted to admire its clarity. This visual revolution forced us to choose sides between 2 ancient tribes, ales and lagers. Think of them as the poets versus the accountants. Ales are the poets, warm, fast, and wildly expressive. Lagers are the accountants, cold, slow, and obsessively disciplined. While the Czechs were busy perfecting this golden discipline, the British were engineering a survivalist, the India Pale Ale, IPA. Most people see the IPA as a modern trend, but it was actually a 19th century military-grade preservative strategy. It was brewed with a massive dose of hops to survive the brutal months-long voyage to the colonies. Today, this traveller has returned as the ultimate craft icon, proving that in the world of beer, a survival tactic can eventually become a masterpiece. By the mid-20th century, the world of beer had become a desert of sameness. Industrial logic prioritized efficiency over character, flattening every local tradition into a single predictable profile: the pale lager. It was consistent and safe, but it lacked a pulse. The legendary porters, bitter IPAs, and heavy stouts that once fueled empires were being pushed to the edges of history. The resistance began with a few stubborn souls in 1971 Britain, forming camera to pull traditional ales back from the brink. But the real explosion happened in 1978, when the US government signed a historic piece of legislation, the Federal Home Brewing Act, H.R. 1337. By legalizing the art of brewing at home, this law shattered the corporate monopoly. It turned thousands of suburban garages into laboratories of flavor, giving the power of fermentation back to the dreamers. This wasn't just an American trend, it was a global mutiny. From the rainy taprooms of Portland to the ancient cellars of Prague, from the neon pulse of Tokyo to the rugged coasts of Cape Town, the craft revolution spread like a fever. We didn't just revive the IPA, we transformed it into a hazy, aromatic manifesto. We even embrace the failures of the past. Sourness. What was once a sign of a ruined batch is now a celebrated art form. From Germany's Champagne of the North, Berliner Weisse, to Belgium's spontaneously fermented Gueuze, we are now toasting to the biological chaos our ancestors once feared. Today, every glass is a bridge across 13,000 years, where a medieval monk and a modern brewer can finally share the same perfect, rebellious pour. Across every continent and through every era, humanity has found a way to laugh in the same language. We call it beer. It is the ultimate social glue, a liquid bridge that can seal a lifelong friendship or end a bitter argument, depending on how many glasses follow. We drink to remember, we drink to forget, and we drink to negotiate the terms of our shared existence. This journey began at the altar of gods, but found its true home in the roar of the tavern. Whether it was the Incas brewing chicha from corn for sacred rituals, or the Germans dancing on tables at Oktoberfest, the essence remains the same: a shift from the divine to the communal. Today, our world is a liquid map of diversity. From the funky, wild ferments of Belgian lambics to the crisp discipline of a German Kölsch, from the deep roasted soul of an Irish stout to the bold, piney hop manifestos of American craft, each pint is a story of a place and its people. In a world often divided by words, the pint remains our most reliable translator, a simple brew that has done what few inventions ever could, turned a room full of strangers into a circle of friends. We often mistake beer for a human invention, but in reality we are just the stagehands for a much older performer. Yeast. You cannot command fermentation, you can only yield to its pace. It is a masterclass in the art of surrender, where the rigid order of a recipe meets the beautiful chaos of biology, and somehow harmony emerges from the darkness. This drink is a philosophy disguised in foam. While the bubbles vanish in a heartbeat, the impact of a great brew lingers like a vivid memory. The true magic of beer isn't found in its alcohol content, but in its role as a liquid archive. Every pint is a vessel for the ghosts of farmers, monks, and builders who found a common language in a simple glass of grain. It reminds us that the most profound things in life require time, trust, and a little bit of organized chaos to truly transform. I want to give you the 10-second rule. When that pint is placed in front of you, don't just reach for the glass. Perform the lace and life test. First, ignore the liquid and watch the foam. In a high-quality brew, the bubbles shouldn't just vanish like soda. They should cling to the glass, creating a delicate white pattern known as Belgian lace. This isn't just aesthetics. It is the physical proof of high protein levels in the grain and a clean fermentation. Second, observe the movement. Within 10 seconds, if the foam collapses into a thin, oily film, the soul of the beer has already departed, likely a victim of poor storage or cheap adjuncts. But if the lace stays firm as you tilt the glass, you aren't just drinking a beverage, you're auditing a masterclass in brewing discipline. In those 10 seconds, if the lace is tight and the foam is alive, you've found the miracle. If it's flat, the brand on the tap is just a name without a craft. We often think of history as a series of kings and wars, but look closer at your Friday night. You're holding a 10,000-year-old companion. From the stone jars that fueled the first sacred rituals to the steel kegs of our global celebrations, beer has been the silent architect of our world. It didn't just exist, it paid the builders of empires, sparked the curiosity of ancient scientists, and gave humanity a reason to stop wandering and start building civilizations. Every glass you hold today is a time capsule, a liquid archive of our collective survival. Every sip is a direct conversation with the priests of Sumer, the monks of Europe, and the dreamers in modern garages. Beyond the laughter and the inevitable hangovers, beer is a masterclass in the art of controlled chaos. We don't actually create beer. We simply set the stage for a much older performer, yeast. You cannot command the fermentation. You can only surrender to its pace. It is a biological lesson in trust, where the rigid discipline of a recipe meets the wild, unpredictable energy of life. And somehow, in that bubbling darkness, harmony emerges. Beer is a philosophy disguised as a beverage. The foam may vanish in a heartbeat, but its impact stays, much like the finest chapters of history or the sharpest memories of last night. The true magic of beer isn't found in its alcohol content, but in its role as a liquid archive. Every glass is a vessel for the ghosts of farmers, monks, and dreamers who found a common language in a simple brew. It reminds us that the most profound transformations in life require time, trust, and a little bit of beautiful, organized chaos. If this liquid history changed the way you look at your glass, tell us in the comments, what simple object should we deconstruct next? Your curiosity might just become the blueprint for our next episode.
I'm Edward, and this is QC Project Simple Things. Thank you for walking this 13,000-year path with me.
But remember, what you see on the surface is never the whole story. There is always a deeper, more complex world waiting to be fermented. Subscribe and turn on those notifications so you don't miss the hidden layers of your everyday life. We'll see you in the next one.